The rustling woods seemed to alter every time he visited. The last time he wandered through them, he was consumed by an abyss of secrecy, emptiness laced with an eerie familiarity. It felt as though he had been there before, even when he had not. The forest played tricks on him, its towering ancient trees reaching for the heavens, whispering forgotten tales of time. They bore secrets, and the abyss within the woods healed him as though he were a child cradled by his mother. And like a child drawn to his mother's embrace, he always found himself returning to the forest. The vast 300-kilometer stretch of woodland harbored Arthur's secret, one he had never shared. Parking his car a few meters away from the entrance, he retrieved his backpack, filled with things of interest only to him. No one knew of his presence there. Another secret. The pale winter sun emerged hesitantly from behind mist-laden skies, attempting to cast its warmth upon the woodland, but to no avail. The air remained frigid, so cold that Arthur could see the breath he exhaled. Switching off his phone and locking it inside the car, he strode into the depths of the forest with an air of ownership. The crunch of leaves beneath his boots, the hushed whispers of the winter breeze, and the distant calls of birds were the only sounds accompanying him. How peaceful was the life untouched by interference. As he came to a halt, his gaze settled upon a solitary cabin, his sanctuary. He had built it with the sole intention of escaping the insatiable noise of the city and the demands of his own existence. A multi-millionaire, he could have traversed every corner of the world if he wished. Yet he found solace in silence. The art of solitude nurtured him. Reaching into his pocket, he retrieved an old-fashioned key. Arthur had always been drawn to antiquity, as if an old soul resided within his modern shell. The door creaked open, releasing an earthy aroma that comforted him. The cabin was simple. No extravagant furniture, no elaborate decor, just a modest cot near a grand window, a wooden table and chair, a clock, a few candles, and some battery-operated devices to combat the night's solitude and the summer's heat. A narrow passage led to a small kitchen stocked with raw fruits and vegetables sourced from the forest. Nothing more. He tossed his bag onto the bed and collapsed beside it, his weary body sinking into relaxation. His eyes fluttered shut, momentarily surrendering to tranquility. But the secret did not end here. A flicker of thought reignited the gleam in his brown eyes, forcing him upright. He left the cabin and ventured deeper into the woods, further into the realm where even the living feared to tread. The dense canopy devoured the light, plunging him into darkness. His vision adjusted, and then he saw it, the forbidden, the forgotten cave. When Arthur first discovered the cave 16 years ago, he never imagined it would become intertwined with his grieving past. He felt a connection he could not explain. The woods, the cave, the very air around him seemed to recognize him, even if he did not recognize them. Dust and time had laid claim to the cave, turning it into a vault of forgotten tales. It had witnessed love, betrayal, vengeance, and valor. Now it bore witness to an abandoned soul seeking restoration. His footsteps echoed against the stone as he moved forward. And there it was, the forbidden secret, known only to him. A colossal rock stood in the center of the cave, guarding something of immeasurable worth. The sword, a relic of an age long past, it remained untouched, unmoved. 16 years ago, he had stumbled upon it, and to this day, it had not shifted an inch. He had attempted countless times to claim it, believing it to be an artifact for his collection. Yet something beyond comprehension anchored it. The first time he touched it, searing pain scorched his palms, branding his skin with a wound that took over a year to heal. Arthur was not one to believe in curses, magic, or the fantastical, until it happened to him. Since then, he had never dared to touch it again. The only person aware of its existence was Uncle Roger, and for reasons unknown, the old man had never attempted to lay a hand on it. The sword remained where it was, waiting. For whom, he did not know. Perhaps only its rightful master could wield it. Perhaps it obeyed an oath, one bound by fate. Or perhaps the woods and the cave themselves guarded a promise made in another life. 16 years had passed, and yet the mystery endured. A heavy sigh escaped him. It had been a long, grueling week. Sleepless nights, unending thoughts. Deciding to leave the mystery as it was, Arthur turned away from the cave and made his way back to the cabin. But as he approached, his steps faltered. A car was parked outside. Uncle Roger. He exhaled sharply. So much for peace. Steeling himself, he stepped inside, finding the elderly man seated on his bed, waiting. "I wasn't expecting you," Arthur muttered. "I never expect you to expect anyone," Roger replied, adjusting his glasses. Arthur groaned. "Uncle, I've had a long week. I just want to relax." "I told you our guest arrives today, didn't I?" Roger's voice was calm, yet firm. "I am not insane, and I certainly don't need a psychiatrist in my home," Arthur snapped. Roger's expression remained impassive. "You will not raise your voice at me, young man. As long as I am here, I will ensure someone looks after you. So do not question my decisions." Arthur clenched his jaw. What is this about? The wealth? The inheritance? Take everything and leave me alone. Roger remained silent for a moment, then sighed. "You are your father's son. The fear of abandonment runs in your bloodline. That fear led to tragedy, and now you stand here carrying its weight. You must let go." Arthur did not respond. The ghosts of his past clawed at his mind, the echoes of his mother's terrified screams reverberating through his consciousness. He took a sharp breath. "I am not my father. And that is precisely what I want you to understand." Silence hung between them. Roger stood. "Sit down. I'll make you some chamomile tea. It will calm your mind." Arthur didn't protest. As he leaned back against the bed, his thoughts drifted into darkness. A few moments later, the aroma of chamomile filled the room. Roger returned with 2 cups, placing one in his hands. Arthur studied the old man. At 55, Roger remained an enigma. His eyes held the weight of the universe. His words laced with wisdom few could comprehend. For years, Arthur had tried to decipher him, only to fail time and again. Taking a sip, Arthur felt a strange sense of relief. He had always turned to whiskey or rum to numb his wounds, but the herbal tea offered a different kind of solace. Roger observed him and muttered, "You young people disregard nature's gifts, falling into the trap of solitude and calling it a depression." "Depression is not an illusion, Uncle," Arthur countered. "From the poets of the 18th century to my father himself, everyone acknowledged its reality." Roger sighed. Williams never understood that it was merely a trap. If he had, he would still be alive, and you would not bear the burden he left behind. Arthur did not argue further. "I'm leaving for Italy in a few months. The project may take years," he said, forcing a smile. Roger chuckled. "A few months is plenty of time to say goodbye. Until then, return to the castle. Get your therapy." Arthur's muscles tensed. "I'm not insane." "Nobody said you were, but the past still has its grip on you. Come back and let the truth reveal itself." Arthur said nothing. He simply took another sip of tea, unaware that in a mere few months, destiny would begin to weave its threads, regardless of his will.